Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from the Hub, here today, of course, with our friend Pastor Jim from Bergstrasse. How are you there?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty well. And today is Tuesday, September the 1st.
It's fantastic.
How did that happen?
I know, because I'm still in May.
I'm still in March.
I know. Oh, for heaven's sakes. So, say this every time. We were chatting beforehand, and I think we decided that we're going to talk about communication.
Huh?
I know. See, and you know what? That's really what it is. Yeah, there's a lot of parts. I think that, pardon me, that COVID has brought out some of the best and the worst in it. And I think that this is as much of a faith issue as it is a secular issue. And yeah, I think we got to explore it a little bit. So you want to start?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
So I think the communication, especially in this, I'm going to call it a current normal.
Yeah.
It's no longer new.
Yeah.
I'm living with COVID, but the idea of how we communicate is always is much more of a challenge right now, because for many, if not all, but I think many people, we've had to learn how to communicate this way with a screen in front of us. And sometimes it's two people like us today, but other times it could be up to 100 people.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. And I shared with Kelly a little bit earlier how last week I was on vacation, but my vacation took place in my dining room as I attended a virtual camp. It's like, well, how do you do a virtual camp? Well, I will just say this. It wasn't the best, but it was a close second. Because, I'm one that likes to do the communication one-on-one. And I missed those impromptu conversations that happened. But to be able to do that, I also needed to deal with the fact that there were 100 faces on my computer screen every once in a while. And
yeah,
we're all in it together. And this communication, I think, especially now, it's making us look at different ways that we communicate. And the same message is going, it's just the way that we send that message to one another is different. And I think, I hate to say it, but I think this video chat, because there are other platforms other than Zoom, but Zoom is the one that's predominant these days, is going to be a way of our daily lives.
Right. I mean, whether it's worship or it's meetings, I think a lot of companies, at least, on the secular side, at least a lot of companies have realized, why are you driving all over the county, state, region, whatever? Why can't we just do this like this? I mean, I love sharing a meal with people too. I do.
Sure.
But in the universe, that can get pretty expensive. And if you're looking at how about at least planning your day, I can get a lot more things in this way than I could if I was driving all over the place. But then you're right. It's about the quality of that time. So it's not just about the dollars and cents. It's about the quality.
Quality of the time, yeah. And when you just mentioned there about, how you do online worship, that's actually something that was new to me, that began the end of March. And I think not so much now, because it's sort of become too familiar, but at the very beginning, I saw like literally people that I would have never expected to engage in an online worship service. And the comments I heard was, I can be a part of this anytime that I want. I don't need to set aside a particular time on a particular day. I don't have to get dressed in a certain way. I can sit at my kitchen table, in my house coat or my jammies, and have a cup of coffee and still hear the word of God and be a part of it. And does that make them any less? Heck no.
Right.
I'm just so glad that they're able to do that. And I think it's shifting how we do communicate and how we engage. And as you said, it's time. It's time. And, you know, I hate to admit it, but there are many meetings where I'm doing something else as I'm listening to what's going on in the meeting here.
Right. I mean, isn't it?
I do that when it's just the two of us, but, you know.
Right. And I think that's become this other sort of phenomenon, is that can you effectively multitask at a meeting? So before, if you were in whatever, even just a meeting room, let alone sometimes, I mean, we've all been to, you know, large meetings or trainings when there've been a, you know, a conference, you know, like a hotel
Yeah.
ballroom or whatever, you're stuck to your seat. And I'm not saying that every droplet that comes out of someone's mouth isn't worth the money that you spent on that training or workshop or meeting or whatever, but can I do dinner prep at the same time when I'm doing Zoom?
Why not? Why
I can
not?
listen and chop vegetables at the same time, but it's about, and that doesn't take away, I know I have so many things I want to check. It doesn't take away from that person's message.
So just to give you an example of that in my own life. So last week, every evening in camp, there was always some kind of a fun activity, a 2-hour fun activity that we did in person, but we also did virtually for 2 hours from 8 to 10 p.m. Well, there were some of those activities for me was like, you know, I wasn't going to sit here for an hour and kind of pretend that I'm engaged when it was like, you know, this could be great background for me. So
Right.
no offense, I would hit the microphone, I'd hit the video, I would go do something else, but I would still be listening to what was going on and I was still engaged with it. And I think that's one of the things that we're finding is that people do have that capacity, but they have to practice and exercise that capacity also. And
Right.
this is forcing us to do that.
I mean, I remember I was at a meeting early on, like in April-ish, and there was a woman in the meeting and she was on her phone while she was walking during the meeting. I really had to check myself because I was simultaneously so super jealous of her and mad at her. Because I was like, I got dressed, I'm sitting in my office and you're out enjoying yourself. And then as this was playing in my head while I was like, oh, it's so pretty. I mean, all those negative things were going through my head.
Yeah.
And then I went, oh, girl, that's not anger, that's jealousy. You wish you could be doing what she's doing. So then I had to make that decision as a grown adult. How do I engage well with other people? She could have been doing that and engaging. She could have been doing that and not engaging. But it's not my call or my place to make that decision about her life. And I really had to have that moment with myself.
And that's exactly right. And it's up to you as to how you choose to engage. How do you want to engage? You can continue to do what you've always done and maybe not do video chat or Zoom, or you can try something new and find out that, oh, maybe this will give me life in a new way. And I think that's important to know. You know, we say this all the time, you know, I can only control the actions of one person.
Right. Right.
No.
And I was being super judgy. And I really had to say, ho, 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 calm down. And then I tried it once. You got to know your meeting, right? There's different kinds of meetings. There's different kinds of engagement that you have or not have. There's webinars where you don't have to engage. You really are just listening. And so I tried. I turned my video off so I could listen and turned my sound off in case weird things happened. And it worked.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, everybody is exploring new ways to how to do this communication in this way, and each of us needs to find out what works for us and what doesn't. And as much as I totally enjoyed my virtual camp experience last week, there were a few days and I was like, I can't do this anymore. But then I realized, well, that's my stuff. I mean, sitting there and with 100 people on a little thumbnail sketch, and I even shared this with them. I mean, sometimes I felt this big.
Literally and figuratively, right?
Literally and figuratively, yeah, because it's like, how do I respond to a comment or whatever? And yeah, there are features that can do that with private chat and all that kind of stuff, but that's hard to navigate, even on a good day.
Right.
Because you're going to send a message out and don't have, you think you're going it to somebody and find out it goes to someone else, and it's like, oh crap.
Well, and also, and I think that, we've said this before, and it's absolutely worth saying again. I mean, we are of the age that we are. We're not young and we're not old. We're those people that are in the middle. And that what?
We're the middle child.
Yeah, right. And this is not to say anything about people above us or below us in age, but sometimes this is great doing this like this. I mean, when you and I chat, I feel like I'm in your office, and you feel like, because we've talked about this, that you're in my office. And so we are good at that, you and I. And for some people, they might never feel that feeling when they're doing it like this, no matter what age they are.
And that's okay, but it took some practice on your part and my part.
Right. We didn't. Right.
And not just with you and I, but with other people in our work lives and our personal life, and doing that. I mean, this whole idea of this kind of communication, is not new to me.
Right.
I mean, I've been talking to my grandkids who are 6,000 miles away, with this way, and it's like, granted, I just can't go hug, but we've learned how to do virtual hugs.
Mm-hmm.
We learned how to do virtual kisses. And
right. And none of these things are about your age. It's about your willingness to just try it.
To be transformed and changed by what's going on in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's why we really wanted to talk about this, because we've both been affected by great and not so great communication, and knew if we were open enough with ourselves, that we knew every other person we knew was in that same position. I mean, I have grown to be a hugger over time, and I miss it. There's some people that when I see them, boy, howdy, the hug will be an hour, because I got so much stored up. So, I mean, to be really transparent about this, I'm doing this and I'm making the best of this because I gotta.
Yes.
I'm not doing this because I'm like, I don't like people anymore.
You're doing it because you want to continue to be engaged with the world. You want to be engaged with your friends. You want to be engaged with your cohorts. And sometimes we need to do it differently. And this is one of those times. And as we've been saying this morning, it's like, we're all in this together. It's not just you or me.
Yeah.
It's us and 7 billion other people in the world.
Yeah, right.
We are all learning. And I think that's one of the things that also makes this really valuable for us, is that this is one of the few things that we can say that the whole world is in it together.
Yeah.
Often it's just easy to break out into our own little personal groups, or individual group, person, whatever. But no, this is everybody.
We're 6 months in, and there are days when I don't want to see a soul on a screen. When I have 6 meetings back to back and they start early and they go late, the last thing I want to do the next day is go, hi, we're on Zoom again.
Again.
And I mean, there really is, I think I've read several, there have been some really interesting psychological articles out there about Zoom fatigue and what does that mean. But I need to I need to engage.
Yeah.
And I like the engagement.
So the funny thing is, even when you said about Zoom fatigue, and I hate to keep using my experience from camp last week, but so in person at camp, you know, I was up every morning by 7:30 a.m. and I would go till midnight, sometimes 1 o'clock when I was at camp. Last week, my first Zoom session was every day at 12 noon. By 10 p.m., I was done.
Yep. And that's a long time.
By that point in time, I had probably been on anywhere from 4 to 6 Zooms in a day. And it's like, this takes away a lot of energy.
It does.
This requires a lot of energy from us.
Yeah.
To do this thing.
And it's also, I mean, it's also weird to look at yourself all day long.
So sometimes when, you know, I get tired of looking at myself, I'll just do this.
You're right. You're right. That has made some meetings very, yeah. Yeah. So I know, I mean, we're not here to, you know, I think one of the things that we like to, the reasons that we like to do this is that we're just regular folk, and sometimes our experiences can be related to, and we're not telling a single soul what's the best way, what isn't the best way, and we're just talking about.
This is never an advice column. It's
No,
how are
for
we?
heaven's sakes. Yeah.
If you are taking this as an advice column, we need to talk.
Yeah, but this is just about how do you.
This is about our current life and how do we navigate it together, and how do we appreciate the goodness of in what we have, in what we have. How can we use it?
Yeah, and to still be able to do work.
Yeah.
Have relationships the best way we know, the best way we can.
I don't think either one of us are less effective in our work.
No.
But is it different how we do it? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. That's okay. Thanks, Pastor Jim. As always, it's always a good time to learn and be with people we like.
Likewise with you, Kelly. I enjoyed this always.
Absolutely. See you, everyone. More fun next week.
More fun. Bye.